The World League of American Football kicked off in 1991 as the NFL's attempt to create a developmental league. The league lasted longer than most, shutting its doors in 2007 after a couple of pauses. But a few team names live on in the current European League of Football. Some of the stories from that initial year in 1991 live on as well, especially the stories of those quarterbacks. Some names you might know. We have a quarterback who was actually a Medal of Honor winner, and another quarterback on this list is in the Hall of Fame. Okay, he's in a Hall of Fame. Let's follow the journeys of the quarterbacks from 1991, the first season of the World League of American Football. London Monarchs quarterback Stan Gelbaugh can say he was an all-world player. That's because he was named to the World League's version of the Pro Bowl. Gelbaugh threw the league's very first passing touchdown, a 96-yarder to John Horton against the Frankfurt Galaxy. Gelbaugh led the league with more than 2,600 yards passing and was tied for the league lead with 17 touchdowns. He led the Monarchs to the first World Bowl title game, where he threw 2 touchdowns in a shutout over the Barcelona Dragons. Technically, Gelbaugh was on 4 teams in 1991. The Monarchs, then briefly on the practice squad of the CFL's Hamilton Tiger Cats, but contract issues forced them to waive Gelbaugh. Then he joined the Kansas City Chiefs practice squad, was waived a week later, and then went on to the Phoenix Cardinals, where he started in Week 12 of the 1991 season. Gelbaugh returned to the London Monarchs in 1992 because of contractual obligations. He had a good season for a bad team and signed with the Seattle Seahawks, where he played until he retired in 1996. Gelbaugh is now a senior vice president for business development for a construction company in Maryland. Orlando Thunder quarterback Kerwin Bell was tied with Stan Gelbaugh as the league leader in touchdown passes with 17. Bell had stints in the NFL with Miami, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, and Indianapolis before arriving in the World League in 1991. Bell was the only other quarterback besides Gelbaugh to throw for more than 2,200 yards in the 1991 season. Bell's Thunder was 5-5 that first year, but they get a 10 for those uniforms. Bell was on the practice squad with the New York Jets in 1992, but his success began the next year with the Sacramento Gold Miners of the CFL. That was the start of an 8-year career in the CFL for Bell, with stops in Edmonton, a 2-season return to the NFL with the Colts, then back to the CFL with Toronto, Winnipeg, and Toronto again. In his first stop with the Toronto Argonauts, Bell threw for nearly 5,000 yards and 27 touchdowns. He ended his CFL career in 2001 after amassing 19,538 yards passing and 101 touchdowns. Also with the Argos, he had one of the greatest spikes in football history. Well, it was not great for him.
He's talking noise, I think.
Oh, and he hit himself. That one bounced out. That hurt.
Bell stayed with the Argos in 2001 as an assistant coach before heading back to his home state of Florida to coach high school football from 2002 until 2006. Bell was head coach at Jacksonville University from 2007 until 2015. He then took over at Valdosta State in 2016, winning the D2 national title in 2018. Bell was back in D1 ball as the offensive coordinator at South Florida before heading to Western Carolina, where he has been head coach since 2021. San Antonio Riders quarterback Jason Garrett, yes, that Jason Garrett, had only a brief flirtation with pro football as a player. He was signed as an undrafted free agent by the New Orleans Saints in 1989, signed to the practice squad, and then waived in 1990. He returned to his alma mater of Princeton as an assistant coach. Garrett gave it another shot in 1991 with San Antonio of the new World League of American Football. Unfortunately, he suffered a separated shoulder in the season opener. Garrett passed for 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions in his short time in that lovely hue of brown, and he did find his way back to the NFL. He was a third stringer on the 1993 Dallas Cowboys squad, moved up to become Troy Aikman's backup, and started a few games for Dallas when Aikman was injured. Garrett held on with the Cowboys for 8 seasons, gathering 3 Super Bowl rings. Then he played briefly for the New York Giants, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Miami Dolphins in the early 2000s before entering coaching in 2005. Garrett is most well-known in NFL circles as the head coach of the Cowboys from 2010 when he replaced Wade Phillips as the interim coach to his final season with Dallas in 2020. Garrett spent a season and a half as the offensive coordinator with the New York Giants before heading into broadcasting with NBC Sports in 2022, where he is now. Birmingham Fire quarterback Brent Pease was the first QB taken in the World League of American Football draft. Before the foray into spring football, Pease was coming out of the University of Montana, and he was cut from the Minnesota Vikings after getting drafted in the 11th round of the 1987 draft. He started 3 replacement games during the strike for the Houston Oilers and was on the roster the next year as the third-string quarterback. After brief stays in Miami and Chicago, Pease headed to the World League. Pease was a part-time starter with the Fire along with Eric Jones. Now, Pease led the team in passing with 922 yards, 5 touchdowns, 6 interceptions for the 5-5 Fire. Pease spent the next year as a backup for the New York, New Jersey Knights in 1992. Then he tried his hand at arena football with the Cincinnati Rockers in 1993. Pease found his footing as a coach, which he actually started while playing pro football in the early 90s. He was an offensive assistant at the University of Montana. Pease went into it full-time in 1996 as the Grizzlies' offensive coordinator. Pease's coaching career really went full circle. He left in 1999 to become the offensive coordinator at Northern Arizona, then to Kentucky as the OC in 2001 and 2002, on to Baylor as OC from 2003 until 2005, then a stay at Boise State from 2006 until 2011. Pease then went to Florida in 2012 and 2013, Washington in 2014 and 2015, then UTEP in 2016 and 2017, before heading back in 2018 to where it all started at Montana, where he remains as the offensive coordinator. The Grizzlies were FCS runners-up in 2023. The World League of American Football's first season had some quarterbacks who had a lot of success in the Arena Football League later. In fact, there's a Hall of Famer in there. And we have a trio of quarterbacks who combined for 0 wins for their team. We'll talk about them, but first a quick word, and I do mean a quick word, from Royal Retros. The World League and other football leagues from the past live on at RoyalRetros.com. Check out the selection of jerseys, t-shirts, even helmets. Use code JLS for 10% off your entire order. The Sacramento Surge really failed to ignite in that 1991 season, despite having a duo of really talented quarterbacks. One was a former NFL second-round draft pick. The other went on to the Arena Football Hall of Fame. Mike Elkins was a second-round draft pick of the Kansas City Chiefs in 1989. Injuries forced Elkins to spend most of his rookie season on the IR. He played in just 1 game that year. The Chiefs sent Elkins to the World League in 1991, where he started for the Sacramento Surge, throwing for more than 2,000 yards and 13 touchdowns with 13 interceptions. He was 5th in passing yards in the league that season for the 3-win Surge. His teammate Ben Bennett, well, he was already a wily vet when he entered the World League. Coming out of Duke in 1983 after setting historic Division I passing marks, Bennett was a 7th-round selection of the Atlanta Falcons, but he opted for the USFL's Jacksonville Bulls. He only appeared in a couple of games in that 1984 season and was waived. Bennett spent some time with the Falcons in training camp in 1985, was cut, and then in 1986 participated in training camp with the Oilers, but was cut 3 weeks later. When the NFL strike of 1987 hit, Bennett was a replacement player for the Dallas Cowboys, but he never played. He was claimed off waivers by the Cincinnati Bengals later that year, and he did play in 1 game, but was let go after the season. In 1988, Bennett got his first taste of arena football when he was signed by the Chicago Bruisers, where his 2,300 yards passing and 49 touchdowns earned him the AFL's MVP award. That caught the eye of the other football team in Chicago, and the Bears signed him as a backup to Jim Harbaugh when the other 2 Bears quarterbacks went out with injuries, but Bennett was not re-signed after the season. So it was back to the Bruisers in 1989, who suspended operations, but Bennett was the league's leading passer despite a shortened schedule. Bennett started 1990 with the Albany Firebirds, was traded to the Dallas Texans, and led that team to the Arena Bowl championship. In 1991, Bennett was a first-round pick of the Sacramento Surge. He was released in April and then signed as a backup in San Antonio. In his World League career, Bennett threw for 60 total yards. Did I really spend that much time talking about a quarterback who threw for only 60 yards in the World League? I did. But his story was so good, and it gets even better. Bennett went back to the Arena League in 1992, where he played for the Texans, but was then traded to the Orlando Predators, where he played for 5 seasons and led the Predators to 3 total Arena Bowls, but came up short in all 3. In 1996, Bennett was the starter for the San Jose SaberCats and finished his playing career with the Portland Forest Dragons in 1997. He was not finished with arena football, however. Bennett got into coaching, first as an assistant with the Milwaukee Mustangs, and then after a season as an assistant at Duke, he returned to arena football as either an assistant or a head coach with nearly 10 different teams. He led the AF2's Florida Firecats to the 2004 Arena Cup Championship, and then Bennett was in the AFL Hall of Fame class of 2000. In 2021, Bennett and the Orlando Predators, now in the National Arena League, mutually parted ways and he left as head coach. Then in 2023, Bennett was offensive coordinator with the NAL's Albany Empire. They're in the disastrous ownership of Antonio Brown. He was fired by Brown during the 2023 season. New York, New Jersey Knights quarterback Jeff Graham was second in the league in passing yardage behind Stan Gelbaugh, who he would later team up with in the NFL with the Seahawks. Graham was the backup to Todd Hamill in the first game of the World League, but replaced Hamill in the first half, and he never looked back. Graham had a cup of coffee with Washington and Cleveland in the NFL before finding success in the World League. He threw for more than 2,400 yards in 1991. The Knights lost in the playoffs to eventual champion London, but Graham set a postseason record in that game with nearly 400 yards passing in a loss. Unfortunately, Graham's pro career never really blossomed after that. He had short stints with 5 different NFL teams and retired after the 1995 season when he was on the Oakland Raiders roster. By the way, Todd Hamill went on to have a long career in arena football, playing for more than a dozen teams from 1992 until 2011. In 1999, while playing for the Milwaukee Mustangs, Hamill became the first player in Arena Football League history to pass for 18,000 yards, 300 touchdowns, and 1,500 completions. He's now a high school football coach in Frisco, Texas. Scott Ernie split time with Tony Rice in the Barcelona Dragons' inaugural season, but Ernie was still able to finish as one of the top touchdown passers in the league. Rice and Ernie led the Dragons to the World Bowl that year, falling short to the London Monarchs. Ernie was a prolific passer at Rutgers and still ranks among the all-time passing leaders for the Scarlet Knights. Injuries ended his pro career in 1992. He went on to pursue a career in insurance in his home state of Pennsylvania. Tony Rice came into the league coming off a 12-1 record at Notre Dame and a national championship. He was passed over by the NFL, but he tried his hand in the CFL for a year in 1990 before heading to the World League. When the league went into a pause after the 1992 season, Rice wrapped up his pro career in 1994 with a season as the signal caller for the Munich Thunder in the Football League of Europe. Like his former Dragons teammate, Rice went into the insurance business and is now an insurance sales executive in Miami. Montreal Machine quarterback Chris Flynn came into the inaugural year of the World League as a Canadian legend. He was a 3-time winner of the Heck Crichton Trophy, which is given to a Canadian university's most valuable player. Flynn is the only player to win that award 3 times. Unfortunately, his college success never translated to the pro level, as Michael Proctor was the starter for the Machine, more on him in just a second, but while playing football in 1994 for a French team in a different league, Flynn saved a girl from drowning and was awarded a Medal of Honor. Flynn is in the Canadian Football Hall of Fame, and he's now a sales rep for a tactical gear company in Ontario. Okay, now to Michael Proctor, a Murray State Football Hall of Famer. Proctor was 6th in the league in passing the first season of the World League. Proctor had a better season in 1992. He went to the CFL with the Saskatchewan Roughriders in 93, then headed to the Arena League with the Charlotte Rage from 1994 until 1996. Then he was on the Indianapolis Colts practice squad later in 96. Proctor is now a safety and health project manager in Illinois. Frankfurt Galaxy quarterback Mike Perez was 3rd in the league in passing yardage, but also led the league in interceptions. Still, Perez led the Galaxy to a 7-3 record in 1991. After another year in the World League, Perez was signed by the Denver Broncos in 1993, but he was cut in the preseason. Perez found football success in the Arena League, where he led the league in touchdowns in 94, 95, and 96 as the signal caller of the Albany Firebirds. Perez led his team to the semifinals each year. Perez is now a mortgage loan originator in Denver. We'll wrap it up with the winless Raleigh-Durham Skyhawks, who had a trio of quarterbacks who unfortunately never had a positive touchdown-to-interception ratio. Mark May got little playing time, but he was probably just glad to be on the field. May was a North Carolina prep football legend, A highly recruited quarterback in 1983, he signed with UNC. During a practice in 1984, he severely injured his shoulder, but was still able to set all kinds of passing records for the Tar Heels. He went on to play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 1988 and was a third stringer for a year, but he never played. 2 years later, May tried to give it a go once more, and he was named the starter for the Skyhawks. However, a re-injured shoulder early in the season ended his career. The May pro football line did not end with that injury. His son Drake, also a UNC Tar Heel, was the third overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft by the New England Patriots. Also, Mark May had two sons who played basketball at UNC and another son who was a pitcher for the Florida Gators. May's Skyhawks teammate Joe Pizzo had a couple of touchdowns in the World League in '91. He had stops in the NFL with Cleveland and Indianapolis before the World League. Pizzo found his call with coaching. After playing with the Charlotte Rage in arena football, he became the offensive coordinator there in '92 and '93. He had the same titles in college at Gardner-Webb from 1997 until 2010, North Carolina A&T in 2011 and 2012, North Greenville from 2013 until 2017. Then in 2018, he was the offensive coordinator at Mercer before taking the same job at Chattanooga in 2019, where he is today. Former Michigan State Spartan Bobby McAllister passed for more than 1,100 yards for the 0-10 Skyhawks after spending the previous season with the Toronto Argonauts. That was the extent of his pro football career. After an 0-10 season, that was the extent of the Raleigh-Durham Skyhawks, which folded at the end of the season. The World League played for 2 seasons in 1991 and 1992, went into a pause, and then was revived in 1995 as NFL Europe, and then later called NFL Europa, before the NFL shut its doors in 2007. Some great memories there, though, from that first league when it was called the World League of American Football. If you're interested in more spring football history, check out these videos. Be sure to like and subscribe for all things alt football.